Today I'm on a place that I really enjoy. Here close to home in East Tennessee, out here on the Holston River. This water is down, but sometime today, actually here should be within the next hour, they're going to start letting some water out, and that water is going to get to us and start coming up. Once that water comes up, that's when I really expect for those bass to start biting. It's summertime, those bass are done spawning, and they really like that increased current flow. That's when they really start feeding. That's really when those fish will position and you can really start picking them off. If you're fishing water that's still, in a lake or something like that, your kind of targets are going to be generated typically based more around cover. The best piece of cover on the bank, whether that's a stump, a clump of grass, whatever that may be. In a river system like this, the places you gotta really consider and what you really want to target have more to do with the current and how the current hits them than actually what the piece of cover itself is. Whether that's a rock or a stump, a laydown, it's kind of irrelevant in some ways. It's much more about how that current pushes into it, where the eddies are, where the seams are. That's where the bass are going to sit and where they're going to ambush that bait fish, crawfish, anything else that they're feeding on as it comes down the river. So you really got to pay more attention to the current and how it hits those pieces of cover or structure than actually what the cover itself is. He ate that swim bait. Oh, that's a nice one too. Just switched to a swim bait from that little Ned rig. Even though that fish is spitting up crawdads. Trying to catch him on something on the bottom, and I may not even have to right now. Yeah, that is a good chunky little smallmouth right there on that swim bait. The thing with a swim bait, a lot of times, this water is super clear. Those fish can see it a mile away, but I'm moving it quick so you can get a reaction bite out of them. That's pretty cool. That fish was really in a spot where I actually had just made the comment, this is a really pretty area. So what we've got, and there's a decent little trough here washed out up near the bank, and you've got a couple big rocks up there that are breaking that current. There's a small eddy there, about that much coming off the bank, and that fish bit right at the edge of that eddy. That's the way a lot of your bites are going to come. But been bouncing back and forth a little bit between a Ned rig. Just picked up this swim bait to give it a try, and looks like it's working pretty good so far. And these low water conditions, kind of depending on where you're fishing. If you've got a place like where I caught that one on the swim bait that the current is really pushing in hard against a bank that's got some depth to it. To me, those are the kind of places you're more likely to catch fish on something moving. But then when you're out here on these shoals where you've got some breaks down underwater, you might catch a fish out here on the swim bait, you might catch one on top water, but something on the bottom just typically is better out in those areas under low water conditions. Look how pretty that fish is. Really dark colored one on the little sticko. Switched it right in here below this shoal. Just wanted to show them a crawdad, something that would get down under some of that current. Look how dark that fish is, man. He's really pretty. This water's got to be coming up anytime here soon. Just bouncing back and forth between the swim bait and that little sticko. Finesse fishing until that water comes up. To navigate a river like this one, it's got so much elevation change. You've got some pretty significant white water, I would call it. It really takes a setup that's, built for this kind of stuff. It's a 1754 Grizzly. I've had some work done, some inside work to make it fish good, but also having that tunnel hole put in on it. Pair that with that Mercury Jet to where nothing is below the bottom of the boat. If I've got that much water rolling across those rocks, I can go. I don't even have to worry about it. So peace of mind and access to places that just a lot of other people can't get. This morning when we put the boat in, the water was low. I mean, there was no current running to speak of, no generators on. With that low water, low current conditions, those fish, were just not set up hard against the banks. They were, some of them out on the shoals, maybe around a cut bank here or there, but now the water's come up. It's come up probably 1.5 feet or so. It's flowing about 3,500 cubic feet per second now. And that is enough current to really push these fish away from the middle of the river. They're not going to be holding on anything out there unless it's pretty substantial. It takes something pretty big to break the amount of current that's out there now. So most of those fish that were just lingering around the edges are now pretty tight to the bank. So that's where your presentations have to be. You want to pick up a swim bait, a big swim bait, to really target these big ones that are up here holding tight to the shoreline in this increased current flow. Fishing in this scenario, there are literally so many moving parts, from the water to the boat, the bait. Everything is in a kind of a constant state of flux. So I'm fishing with something that's not weedless in an area that's very, very hangy with this swim bait with that, you know, big open treble hook on the bottom of it. So I've got to take into account how much, you know, the current's going to push it down. Is it going to push it into the next log? Trying to skip it in there and make a good cast. There's just so many things working at the same time that you've got a lot of stuff you've really got a time to make the right presentation to get those bass to bite it. One of my friends described it as full contact bass fishing. That is the best way I know to describe fishing in a river with moderate or high current. This tree, this is the spot where I missed that good one a little bit ago on top water. And right there he was again. Let me try skipping a wacky worm in here. That's a great follow-up bait. That was absolutely that same big largemouth. Here's a bite. Yep, he got it. Yeah. That might just be him. Stay on there, buddy. I had him follow my top water. He just missed my swim bait. But thankfully I had a sticko laying there ready to go as a backup. And it worked. Man, I can't believe that. I think that's my third encounter with that largemouth right there. He missed my top water earlier. I just threw my swim bait in there, missed him on it, but thankfully this time I had a wacky rig sticko laying there, ready to pick up, drop back on his nose. I should have had that ready earlier, but I didn't. It worked out though. Nice one. It's a smallmouth, I think. Oh yeah. I actually just still had the wacky rig in my hand. Nice smallmouth. This isn't the biggest smallmouth in the world, but he doesn't know that. I don't think he has any idea that that's the case. Here, buddy. All right, that was just kind of on a whim. I just still had the wacky rig in my hand. And man, it worked. It's definitely a combination between knowing where they are, knowing where they're sitting in those eddies, and dropping that little wacky rig or that big swim bait in on their head. I think you target some of the same fish, but you definitely target some different ones. Either presentation, I could probably go down through here with one, come back with the next one on the next pass and catch totally different bass each pass that I came down through here. All right, got that out of there. Let's get him back in the water. That's a nice chunker. There was really two techniques I was bouncing back and forth between today. For me, that big swim bait was really the thing that was key. That was what caught some of the biggest fish that I caught today. And that's a big bait. You're looking at nearly a 6-inch swim bait right there. And I've got it rigged a pretty unique way. Actually a way I wanted to vent a few years back up on the Mississippi River, but that's a solid bodied swim bait that I turned into a line through bait. So if you just look up creating a line through swim bait, you can find that video from there. The other one was following up sometimes a missed fish on that swim bait, or just throwing in some of those other little still eddies, maybe where I saw a fish or I just expected one to be laying. And that was throwing a wacky worm. That's a Bass Pro Sticko 4-inch green pumpkin purple flake. I was throwing that on a spinning setup, Johnny Morse Platinum, spinning rod and reel, size 30 reel, 10-pound braid. 10-pound XPS fluorocarbon leader. Man, that is my setup for spinning tackle everywhere I go. It's a 7-1 medium action rod. Caught so many bass on that spinning setup, it's just unbelievable. But those were the two techniques that I caught most of my fish on today. That was really kind of the deal, was either catching those fish when they wanted to be up in the water column on that moving swim bait, or when they wanted something down just a little bit slower with that wacky worm. That little pipe there set back in a perfect eddy behind that wad of brush. Good shade. Oh dang, look, two big ones. I'm about to blow out my flip-flop. There was two big fish coming up there after that swim bait. I actually didn't blow it that time. I just kept reeling, let him eat it. Man, that is a nice largemouth. Just kept reeling and let him get a hold of it. There we go. Dude, that is a chunk there now. A beauty. Come up there, just kind of sharked up on that swim bait, and there was a buddy with him. I just kept reeling and just swam up and just slurped it down. Golly, that's so cool. Such a visual bite. It's almost top water. It's about the closest thing you can get to it. It's so important on a system like this that's below a dam and that water level fluctuates to really pay attention to the water level. When it's low, it's really good to focus out on those shoals, on those eddies, on those little drops in the bottom. But once that water comes up, you want to pull tight to the bank, tight to the cover, because that's where the bass go.